Okay. Dan is an award-winning third-generation painter. His dad and grandfather were also painters. Dan paints in watercolors and also in gouache, and he likes to do plein air painting. He has won multiple awards and been featured in Plein Air Magazine, Watercolor Artist, Southwest Art Magazine, and honors include the Gene Stern Legacy Award at Laguna Invitational, the Best of Show Award at Grand Marais Plein Air, and Dan lives in Cold Springs with his wife and children. Currently, Dan is teaching at the White Bear Center for the Arts, and also he teaches a monthly online class. And if you want to find more about that, just go to Dan's website and you can find out more about it. We received about 45 submissions for our critique session. And so what we did was, since there were so many and multiple people put in multiple submissions, we decided to pick one from each artist. So we have 31 paintings to review tonight. They're going to be critiqued in alphabetical order of the submitter's last name. So we'll start with the last name of A and go to the end. Dan will do a short critique of each piece. If you have any questions, if you type it into the Zoom chat, Britt will ask the questions for you, and Britt will unmute you when it's time for your painting to be critiqued. Okay, Britt and Dan, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy. Thanks everybody for submitting the artwork. I think this will be fun to kind of go through the paintings and have a good conversation about things. Yeah, I guess just a few housekeeping things. I know Britt is gonna unmute you when your painting is up. I will maybe ask you a question or something that you can be thinking about while you're waiting for your painting to come up is what is one thing that you're looking for feedback on? So when I look at paintings and I teach quite a bit, so I have a pretty good sense of your ability levels and your experience level just by looking at your painting. So I will critique or give feedback sort of based on what is going to be helpful for you. So I know some people really want a critiquer to just bash them and tell me be brutally honest with me, and I think that's well intentioned. It sounds funny, but I think the reality is it has to be helpful feedback, and so. A few things that I think you could do to make the painting better, and some things that are going to be advice for how to handle something in the future. So, when I look at paintings, I don't think it's always worth working on a certain painting more, trying to fix something that's wrong with it. My general advice is usually to paint it again and to learn from that mistake, or not mistake, but a way to do it better. So I'll kind of try and touch on those things for each person who's got artwork up, and I'm eager if you have something that you were specifically looking for feedback on or that you struggled with or whatever to mention that, and I will just put out a fair warning, please keep your comments brief because I know it can be fun to talk about your own paintings, but with 31 to do, I think we'll want to keep it concise so that we can keep going with the conversation. So please no rambling. I'm the only one that's allowed to ramble tonight, so I will be rambling a lot. I'll probably be rambling about my kids and hockey and all sorts of stuff that's unrelated to your artwork. So I apologize in advance, but no, just keep that in mind when your painting comes up, and I think we'll have a good time and get through these. So, Britt, what should we do here? Just get going on the first one. Does anybody
Yep.
have any questions for me off the bat?
Just get going on the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat. Or when it's your turn, I'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself if you get there before me. And yeah, you could ask questions that way too, but I think we're ready to just get going.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to share my screen here, and can everybody see the drive folder here with the paintings? So up first is Donna Anderson, so I'll put this up, and Everybody can see the mailbox painting. Britt, give me a thumbs up if are we good here? Everything's working fine? Okay, great. So, yeah, looking at this painting, the first thing that I noticed right away is the clean technique that's used for this. So, looking inside that mailbox, you can see granulation in the paint, and some people don't like granulation. Personally, I'm a big fan of it because it tells you that the paint was put down once freshly and it was left alone. So for me, granulation is a good thing. I like the tightness and the control. I appreciate the lettering on that. That's something that's not easy to do. And so I really liked that. I guess if there were things that I would uh, mention as far as to maybe improve it would be a little bit more variety in the background of the painting. So looking at that background, it is kind of a uniform color and value. And so I'd be looking for areas that I could darken or somewhere where I could add a gradation. And you'll probably hear me say this so many times tonight that you'll be sick of hearing it. But if you ever have an area in your painting that you don't know what to do with, and for me, it's often a foreground. My recommendation is to give it a gradation in value or color. So I think you could go many different ways in this one, but that would be something that I would consider about is just giving that background variety and probably with the gradation. But overall, really tight piece and just a nicely rendered painting. A lot of care that went into it, and it's a beautiful piece. So nice job, Donna. And Britt, I don't know who's here with us or who isn't. So if
Yeah. So I don't see Donna in the list of participants right now, but
Okay.
I guess there are some people now that I'm looking at this, like one person's name is 442276, and then I'm not sure who that is. So,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, if someone's here and I don't catch you because I can't see your name, like you sure can unmute yourself or you can stay muted, that's fine. I have one question. Are you a full-time artist?
I am a full-time artist. Yep. I've been a full-time artist since 2011. Originally was kind of doing art fairs and larger murals and stuff like that, and a lot of commission work and then I went into kind of the plein air field and was doing plein air events, and um then we started having kids, and now I can't really travel all that much. So I'm at home and I'm doing weekly watercolor classes. I do 3 a week from September through April, and sprinkle in workshops and sales, and I do commission paintings. And in the summer I started doing wedding paintings, so I do a lot of wedding paintings. I think last year I did 12 of them, so that's keeping me busy. It's nice. I'm just gone for a half a Saturday and then can work on it the rest of the week during the studio. So yeah, making a living as an artist, and things are going well. I always joke that I'm not a starving artist, but you can buy me lunch if you'd like to. So that is my joke for that. So thank you for the question. Just looking at the artist here, I'll keep moving on to the next one. This is Ivy Bailey. So I don't know if Ivy is here, but this is just a wonderfully rendered piece, and I'll just fast forward to the photo reference. So you can see there's a fair amount of departure from the colors specifically from the reference photo to the painting. And I think it's a smart move the way this was organized. So looking at that background, I'm seeing more of an introduction of a cooler color scheme. So blue, violet, and also darker. That's making the petal on the flower, the yellow pop out. I'd like the reserved white on that as far as an accent, and overall just a nice handling of the medium. So when you look at the big petal towards the bottom, there's a nice texture and gradation from violet to green, good value contrasts, and a nice rhythm to the shapes as they allow your eye to kind of follow the lines throughout the painting and keep bringing you back towards that focal point. And so I'll just fast forward to the original reference photo, and you can see this is a lot of kind of muted analogous values and colors in the background. Looking back at like this area here, and over here, there's quite a bit of busyness that's maybe a little bit distracting, but the lines are very random as nature is. And then when you come back to this, you can see there's just a nice rhythm to the way these lines flow throughout the painting. Look at this beautiful curve here, and then up the stem, and then right into the flower. So I think that is the element to this, or the principle that I think is working really well, is that sense of rhythm and a lyrical quality, which really matches well for the subject matter too. So nice job, Ivy. It's a beautiful painting. All right, moving on. So we've got Susan Bast here. Nice fresh watercolor. I really like this scene quite a bit. Looking at the cleanliness of the way the paint was put down, and just very spontaneous watercolor. So nice clean washes. I love how the there's an attention to texture. So when I look at this reflection down here, I can see nice soft gradation from the mid value down to the light value. And then it's contrasted with these very sharp edges on the building, which makes sense for architecture. And then you get into the tree in the upper left, and we've got good mid and dark values shadowing underneath the foliage chunks, and some splatter and calligraphy, but overall the texture there is a little bit harder and rougher, which matches that object and creates a nice contrast with this soft water down below. So overall, nicely rendered painting. I think one thing I would suggest as a way to finish off any watercolor painting, not just this one, but is gestural calligraphy. So the line element is something that we a lot of times forget. And I know there are lines in here, but I'm talking about something like this right here, which has a gestural energy to it, and that can really finish off a painting nice. If you have a focal point where you're looking to bring the viewer's eye to, if you can find some calligraphy in that area, I think that's a good place to do it. So it could be cracks on the wall, it could be just some branches. You know, I paint a lot of landscapes, so that's what I think of right away. But yeah, that would be something I would consider. Nice clean burnt sienna accent up here, and the overall kind of muted, cooler color. So nicely done. Beautiful painting, Susan. There's that reference photo again. Okay, so moving on to, this is Shannon Buffy. And I think I'm going to switch my screen over to Photoshop. I wanted to show something on this painting, which I think is good.
It's
So,
Shannon,
great.
Buffy Shannon.
What's that?
Shannon, it's Buffy.
Buffy.
Shannon's my last name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, it happens all the time.
Thank you for clarifying that. So, all right, good. So, I was looking at this painting here, and are you seeing Photoshop right now, Britt? Or are you seeing my, okay, thank you. So this is the painting, and this was the reference photo. So I just want to take this reference photo and switch it into black and white and point out just some of the values that I'm seeing in this. So some pretty clear light values, or white paper for the lights that are around the tent, and then a mid value for the tent, and an overwhelmingly dark background. And so then I wanted to switch over to the painting here, and I see some light values in the tent itself, and kind of close to mid values on the tent, but also more of a mid value background. So I was just going to turn this into black and white and kind of illustrate that point a little bit. So here is the painting in black and white, and here is the photo in black and white. And you can see there's a little bit of a difference in the level of contrast in the two. So my recommendation on something like this would be to, I'll just use a burn tool here and show you how, if you darken this background a little bit, and I'll make my size bigger there, but if we just darken this background a little bit, you can see how immediately this starts to look like more of a night scene, and kind of matches the values of that the photo reference. And I know it's not our goal necessarily to try to mimic or replicate a photo, but I think there's a difference between being able to do that and choosing not to, and not really knowing what to do in the first place. And so here's a good example of how matching those values that were in the reference kind of brings out that authentic light and shade that's in the scene. So that would be my kind of recommendation on this painting. I love the setting. I like the colors, really strong sense of warm and cool colors. I like how you played those up. And so great job. Nice rough texture in that foreground. Just my 2 cents as far as how I might improve that specific piece. So, and I think that would be worth doing on this painting.
That's great. Thank you. It was raining that night.
It was raining that night?
Uh-huh.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, yeah, I might even further emphasize the vertical reflection by adding, let's go smaller. So a little bit smaller. So in these darker spots, just bringing those down like this.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
That would help bring out that sense of a wet road.
That's
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was a good one to try and bring into Photoshop there and do that. So great. All right, share. Let's go back to this screen. So nice job, Buffy. All right, moving on to the next one here. We've got the rooster. So I've got chickens myself, so I am partial to this one. I thought it was really well rendered and like the attention to detail. Looks like there was a fair amount of lifting in this, and I think it's a great subject for that because there is a lot of small detail and you can lift it out nicely. I don't know if this was Yupo or some kind of coated paper, but you did a great job with that. I like the handling of the reflection or the grounding of the chicken right here. I thought that was kind of a nice loose complement to that really realistic rendering. Yeah, good use of values, good use of color. Seeing the full range in both in terms of muted and intense colors, and also light to dark values. So nice job on this painting. I think it reads clear. I like the breakup of the space in the background. I think that was nicely done. I had a thought of trying to bring some kind of a color or value like this and taking it behind the tail feather over here off the page. I thought that might be a good way to balance it out because it exits the painting on this, breaks the picture frame right here, and I might try to balance that off up somewhere else on the painting. Tony Couch used to talk about vignettes. Edgar Whitney would talk about vignettes where you don't paint the background and leave it white. And they would say, try to break the picture plane or the border on 3 sides. So that's something to think about. There's probably a good reason for that. And it's just breaking up that background space into nice shapes and getting good balance there. So great painting. Nice job. All right, moving on to the still life here. This is Julie Kramer. So as I'm going here, if you do have a specific question, just feel free to chime in and let me know. Here's another one where I like the negative space that was created by the shape of the flowers. So looking at this background over here, a lot of incidents at the edges of this shape, and just in general, a lot of variety to that edge. So I appreciated that. Another thing I really appreciated about this painting is if you look at the layering that's on these petals, there's fresh, clean application of paint, a very thin veil of color that really sparkles and brings a lot of light into the scene. So I was really enjoying that on this painting. I like the dark background. I think that really contrasts nice. This is an example of a painting where I would suggest starting to think about lost and found edges. So the edge around this entire vase and of the petals is pretty much a hard edge with definition to it. And like right here, I'm seeing a little bit of a lost edge. Right here, I'm seeing a little bit of a lost edge. And I like those. And I think there could be more of them in this, and it would add energy to the scene. So if you can get soft texture on something, it brings in an atmospheric and sense of light. It really brings in a feeling to the painting. So enhancing and using that texture to your advantage, I think, is a good thing. And I love the crispness of this, and I think it would stand out even more with some soft edges to complement it. So nice job on this painting.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we've got is this Jane Deal? And so here's the painting. Here's the reference photo. I love the reference photo. This is my kind of subject. I love the light on the clouds, the fading horizon, the rocks, clearly the North Shore or some similar type of landscape. So beautiful scene. And I look back at the painting and I thought there were a lot of things you did with this that were really successful in looking at that reference photo. So one thing I really like right off the bat is that you lost the horizon between the water and the sky. And I just think that's a tough thing to do. We always want to define those things. And so I think leaving that as a lost edge brings a lot of space for the eye to travel through there. I thought the light on the clouds was strong. I like that. I liked how you toned the clouds warmer here and painted around them with the cooler, darker color. So I think this highlight up here really works well. Like the introduction of the bird. Overall, I think just the values in general are matching the scene. So squint your eyes down, you can see a dark landmass against the lighter background. And it's pretty much the same thing here. We've got some highlights on the rock, but there's clarity between the two. So I like seeing that. And a lot of times people have a harder time getting the landmass down to a mid value or darker. And so I thought that was really good here. Like the rough texture, I like the calligraphy up front. This highlight on the rocks looks good. And then again, those softened edges I think are key to adding variety to a scene. So I like the way this fades off into the lake. I thought that was a nice touch. So looking at the reference photo, you could darken the water at the base. That would be something that would be maybe worth doing. And then you know, nice job again on the textures. So rough textures up front, they come towards us and the soft textures recede. So I thought you did a good job with texture on this one, using it to your advantage to create depth and also the variety. So good job, Jane.
Dan, we have a question. Could you just talk a little bit more about what lost edge means?
Yep. So a lost edge is, let's see if I can go back to this painting here and zoom in a little bit. Okay, so lost edge is when you have essentially a soft texture between two shapes or two objects, and oftentimes you want to create a soft edge. So in texture, you can have smooth or hard, you can have rough, or you can have soft. And those directly relate to the techniques that we use when painting. So if it's wet paint on wet paper, you get soft texture. If it's wet paint on dry paper, you get smooth or hard texture. If it's dry paint on dry paper, you get rough texture. And soft texture really describes a lost edge where you can't define the difference between the objects. So a good time to look for it is when you have two objects that are similar value. They might be different color, but they're similar value. And that's where I would not create a hard edge. I would create a soft edge so that the eye can travel from one object to the next. And that's really the goal, is to kind of create a more elusive, expressive subject that also enhances the viewer's ability to move from one object to the next. So you're entertaining your viewer. That's the goal. So right here, in this area right here, you can see the green grass melting right into the blue-gray water, and they're similar value. The color changes, but the value stays the same. And that's what I would call a lost edge. So it's not really defined between the two. It's sort of masked or hidden. You can travel through from one object to the next. And you can get away with that when you have other areas along those two objects that are defined. And that balance is a nice thing. You see it again here, this fading off into the water and the fog. So those are good examples of lost edges. And I'll keep pointing them out as I see them, because I I love them, and I think they're really important for a scene. So, all right, moving on. We got Mary Elling. Got a beautiful reference photo here with the glimmer on the water. I think this is, again, my kind of subject. I love the light and shadow, and just a beautiful scene. So there's the reference. We'll move forward to the painting, and lots of things I really like about this painting. So I'll go back to it, but clean application of paint, which for me means fluid paint put down once and then left alone. So you can see the fluidity. They say substances that obey their own laws do beautiful things. And watercolor wants to be wet. So it wants to flow, it wants to move. I think one of the coolest things about watercolor is that you can put it on wet, and then when it dries, it still has that fluid wet look. So when I look at the sky up here, in this cloud shape, I see this melting paint, and obviously it's dry now, but it still retains that look. And I think that just gives it energy, and there's an inherent beauty in the medium. And if you can use that to your advantage and just let it do it for you, it's a beautiful thing. So clean application paint throughout. I like these fluid washes contrasted with this rough texture. That's another wonderful thing if you can do it. And I think overall in this painting, probably the best thing that I like about it is there is a lot of negative painting. So not just in the sky where you're painting around these clouds, but painting around these brightly lit trees. That's a hard thing to do. And then in the foreground here too, just painting this darker shadow around these foreground shrubs and grasses and whatever, doesn't matter what they are. I think that's just a nice thing to do. We have a tendency as painters to always want to paint the positive object. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when you paint the negative space, you're painting with a different brush stroke than what you would use to paint the positive object. So it renders the scene or the object, but gives it a little bit of a fresher take, just because it's painted a little bit differently. So when you paint around those objects, you leave a different brush stroke, and it's a nice, charming surprise for the viewer. So nicely done on that. I think don't really have any huge suggestions. This area right here would be a good place to introduce a lost edge. So that's a big run of hard edges. If you could lose a few of them, I think that would be helpful. And you see it happen right over here. That edge starts to get lost, and it just creates a nice passage. So that would be something that I would consider doing. But overall, just a nice fresh painting. I really liked it.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you bet.
Good feedback.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, is that yours, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yep. Nice job on this. That's great.
That's up in Grand Marais when I took your workshop.
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks.
That's beautiful. Great job. Okay, looking on to the next one here is this fish painting. And I think this is another one where I will share my other screen and bring those into Photoshop. So pull up Photoshop here, get out my files, and here we go. Bring those into Photoshop, and we'll just take a look here. So I'll zoom in a little bit. This is the original reference photo. I'm going to desaturate that so you can see it in black and white, and then we'll take a look at the color painting here. Why isn't it letting me do it? There we go. And we'll do the same thing here, turn this into black and white, and then we'll just kind of toggle between the two so you can see the difference. So if you look at the just the whole background horizon in the actual reference photo, and then look at the painting, you can see that the painting is quite a bit lighter in that background. We're not getting that sharp contrast that you see in the photo. And then if you look at the shadow underneath the hat here, you know, we've got probably the darkest part of the photo right in there in that scene. So that would be another area where I would consider darkening. So let's just turn this back into color, and I'll switch the scale on my burn tool, and I would just go through back here and just deepen that a little bit. Do the same thing on the other side, and you already see that figure popping forward. So I would probably sneak up on the values in the face, but go a little bit, not quite as strong there, but you could definitely darken that, and that would help. Just gonna scale this down a little bit more, especially rounding out that hat a little bit. And that brings a nice touch to this. And then I think there was some more, yeah, there's definitely some more underneath this fish in here. Some of the shadows on the figure were a little bit darker down there, a little bit on the fish too. So just looking at the values and what was presented in the reference photo, and then looking at the
Wow.
painting. And those are just the areas that to me immediately show up as different. So I teach visual literacy in my classes. So I teach seeing, what are you seeing for a value in a color? Can you mix it and recreate it and put it on paper? And I know, again, it's not our job to replicate anything. That's not what really we're after. But I do feel like it's an important skill to have, to be able to recognize and put words to what you're seeing. So in other words, I take this photo here, and I can say that background is a variety of cool and warm greens. The base of that horizon is a dark value, and the top portion of the horizon is more of a mid value. So I can put words to what I'm seeing, and then I know how to mix the paint consistency for dark values and for mid values. And then I also know what a cool green is and what a warm green is. So a warm green is a green with yellow and orange in it. A cool green is a green with blue in it. So being able to put words to what you're seeing and then be able to mix those paint consistencies up and put them down is a huge help. So but great job. I think the thing I loved about this painting was the rendering on the fish. I thought you got the glisten on it, you got the colors right, the portrait looks great. I just thought it was a charming painting, and you can just see him beaming with pride with that. So I thought it was a fun subject, and I really liked it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, switch back to my other screen here. All right, so we're down through what, 12, 15, and we probably have, so we're about I don't know, a third of the way through. Andy, we doing okay on time?
I think so. I think we're about halfway.
Halfway, okay,
Yep.
good deal.
Yeah, so I think we're doing great.
Okay, perfect. So can you see the drive folder now, Britt? Yep. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, all right, so moving on, we've got, is it Lori Graphing? Am I saying that right? Graphing. So I was looking at this painting for a while too. I thought this was a beautiful piece, nicely rendered. You look at some of those leaves and the stones, I thought it was really well done. There was attention and care put into all of these
Okay.
things, and really appreciated that. I don't know why it is as artists, but we're attracted to these very abstract scenes in nature. And I think that's something that obviously I can tell what it is. It's rendered well, but I think just the overall busyness to it is something that I think as artists, for some reason, we're just attracted to that. When we can see that abstract and in the natural world, it's a cool thing. So really like the painting. The leaves, the rendering, the curl on like this leaf right here, the rendering on this one here, I thought were really nicely done. As far as like any advice overall to this painting, I think it's a busy scene. There's a lot going on, but I think maybe trying to clarify the focal point a little bit more would help. So to me, I feel like it's either up here or it's in this area right here. And I'm not quite sure which. And, I think that's good evidence that maybe we could glaze down some of the highlights in the peripheral areas, just take them down a valuer tool and allow those most bright areas that you want to highlight to have the whites. Another thing too would be just maybe thinking about a color dominance. I think it's probably warm in this painting, but there are some areas on the peripheral where you could take these cools and just bring them closer to a neutral to emphasize that focal point with the more intense blue on it. So those would be some things that I would think about. Just you know, it's fine tuning really because it's well painted. You've got a good handle of the medium. So that would just be things to consider. Doesn't mean you got to go in and change this painting. It would just be things to consider and think about in your piece. So nice job. All right, Marianne, got a beautiful waterfall scene here. So I really liked the way that you got your mid values down to a good mid value. It allows your light values to pop out, so that water going through the scene really stands out. My favorite part of this piece are the figures in the background. I thought that was a really nice touch. Whenever you have figures in your painting, you can kind of enter as a viewer in a different way. You can imagine yourself being out there. So I'm a big fan of putting them in the paintings. I think that's a nice touch. Good use of color. So got a dominance of more subdued, muted tones, and then some nice intense color up here. And then again on this background where the figures are. So nice use of color, great use of value contrast up near your focal point. A lot of rough texture, a lot of hard texture. I'd be thinking about getting some more smooth areas, especially in your focal point. So if you look up here, a lot of rough texture, a lot of sort of the streaking lines, splatter, rough texture. If you could get one or two nice fuzzy soft edges up here, I think that would be just the icing on the cake. So I like the painting of the leaves up here too. It's really, really hard in a painting to be able to capture all the detail to kind of pay homage to the scene without it becoming too busy. And I think this is an example of being able to put a lot in there, but keeping it in cue or in balance with the rest of the scene so it doesn't take over. So I really like that part of it right there. I'd say in this area here is something to think about, is kind of like a tangent. So the flow of the water is kind of coming down at the same angle as the rock. I'd consider changing the angle of the rock so it wasn't parallel with the waterfall. So something like this would be easy, just to bring that rock down a little bit straighter like this, then cut it off at an angle where it's not next to a tangent in the scene. So this little area right here, that's something that I would consider doing to this painting still, because it's not a major change. It's just a shift in the shape. I would definitely do that on this painting. So nice job though. Well painted. Good job, Marianne.
Dan, we
All
have a
right.
question about what app are you using to change the value on the photos of the paintings? Was that Photoshop?
Yep, that's Photoshop.
And you're using, was it the burn tool?
Yep, that was the burn tool. Yep, exactly. Thank you. All right, so we got Mary Sue's painting here. This is of a little structure out in the woods, and we've got a reference photo here. So looks like some white cedar trees, some nice sandstone structure, beautiful dappled light. This is my kind of subject. I really like this. So beautiful scene, nice composition. You got your focal point right here. It's in a nice sweet spot on the painting. So if looking for placement of a focal point, I usually, you know, if you draw a line from corner to corner, in the middle of that X will be the center of the painting. And I usually just try to go halfway to any corner and put my focal point there. So it'd be right there, right there, right there, or right there. And you've got this placed really nicely in that spot. So good job on the composition selection through your subject matter, and that's an important thing. So all right, that was the photo. Let's go over to the painting. So I got some bold colors in this one, which is nice to see, the beautiful warm colors up front. I think it really brings out that feeling of the illumination that you feel when you're in the woods, that warmth that's in there. So I like that. Got the sunlight and the focal point maintained here. I do like the trees and the rendering on those, especially this light and shadow on this one. I thought was a really bold move, and you left it, and I like that. So great job. This is one where in the middle of these yellows here, I'd consider giving variety by adding in the center of that an even lighter version of that yellow, or maybe even pushing it to almost white. So that little gradation in value from bright white to the yellow, then out to the brown, would be a nice way to emphasize that sunspot. So that would be something I would consider doing on that one. And then at the end, you know, some fine calligraphy on your branches is always a nice touch. I try to recommend that in landscape painting. But yeah, overall, great job. Fun painting to look at. I love it. Looks good. Okay, Roy, I know I saw you in there. Roy, I know you're here. I saw you earlier today too, Roy. So good to see you again. You could probably tell
we
me
go.
what I'm going to say before I even say it. Okay, so we got Minnehaha Falls, and here's the reference photo, and nice capture. Got the beautiful fall colors. Got the white here, which is the coveted feature of watercolor painting, leaving that white paper. So I liked that a lot. And I liked all the branches and the negative space in between those. It's a nice scene. It's a very paintable scene. And I thought, you know, looking at your painting, I thought you translated it really well into watercolor. So looking at the soft edges and the lost edges on the top of these trees, that's a nice touch. Beautiful soft sky. Your values, your colors, your intensities are all spot on. I love the richness of the value of the darks next to these lights here. It's a beautiful contrast. Good rendering, dry brush on the trees, the foliage, to give it not only variety, but to give it some sense of light and shade. I thought that was nice. I like the use of gouache for these trees. I think that's a smart decision there. I think if Sargent were painting this scene, he wouldn't be negative painting in between all those branches. He would bring in the opaque and do that and paint it that way. So I like that. I like that you toned it so it's not bright white, doesn't compete with the white of the waterfall. That was a smart move. And the only thing I was gonna suggest, Roy, is trying to get some soft texture on this waterfall somewhere. So there's a lot of rough and there's a lot of stark hard edges, and those are great. This is kind of more of what I was after here, is like a little bit of a softened edge. If you could get more of that, especially along some of these spots, I think that'd be good. And then I'm seeing it here. You go from bright white in the middle, and then right on the edge, there's a toning of the white. So it doesn't, maybe comes down to a mid value, but there's a shift from bright to dark. And so I think some of these areas could use just that little fringe of mid value on the side, and that'd be a good element. So did you have any specific questions you were wondering about, Roy?
I did. I was wondering about those in the very foreground, a lot of those bushes. If the photograph shows it pretty much like that, but I thought I maybe should have simplified it a little bit and not have as much. I was wondering about that.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I guess I didn't give it much thought, and so that might be problem solved there. You minimized it in a way that it wasn't really a problem for me. But now
Okay.
that you point it out, let's analyze it. So I don't mind the color. I like the gradation from muted, cooler gray violet to up to warmer, more intense color. I think you can do a better job on the edge of this right here. I think this is pretty smooth along the way, and I would consider breaking it up more with a little bit larger of a shape. Hey guys. So does that make sense? So more incidents at the edges, kind of some foliage, breaking up, not just a straight edge like that. I think that would be a nice addition to that. Hey, I gotta take just a quick 1 minute break, so I'm gonna just stop my share. Jack just got home from hockey, so I will be right back.
Okay, sounds great. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. So far, so good. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning a lot.
Very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of you who put photos or put images in are just really brave. And I'm wishing I would have done it.
Mhm.
I'm bummed I missed my painting, but I can watch it in the recording.
Yep.
Yes, he liked your chicken very much.
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear. He's very kind, I noticed.
Yes, he's got some good ideas.
I could not find, I think I must have accidentally erased the email that had the link on it, so I was
Oh,
late.
no.
I'm sorry. I've been getting so many emails lately.
Well, Susan, this might be a good time. Did you have something that you wanted to mention about the voting?
I kind of put it on the email. You mean to everybody?
Yeah, or just that that's coming up. I didn't know if you wanted
Yeah,
a chance to.
in January 9th, we'll have the official voting to vote in the 2 executive board members of the treasurer and the secretary. The treasurer, this will be her 2nd term. So, her name's Mary, and she's been doing a great job. And she's getting all our books in a row. And so I'm excited that she's staying another 2 years. And then everybody should have gotten an email with a bio of Anne, who's going to be our new secretary, who's replacing Nancy. Sad to see Nancy go because we love her, but Anne is wonderful also. So we're excited about that too. And take a look at her bio and get ready for the vote for January 9th.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
So we'll be,
Susan.
everyone who attends the January demo meeting on Zoom will vote on Zoom.
Yes, and if you notice on Zoom, if you click on like I have an iPad, so if I touch my screen, all my little things pop up. And in the reactions, you click the little happy face reactions and you'll see raise hand. So I'll do it right now. See, there it is on
Mhm.
my little picture. And so when we're voting, you'll just raise your hand if you're in favor, and if not, just don't do anything. And I'll say it again on January 9th to let everybody know. It's also in the email.
Thanks, Susan.
Sure.
Britt, I see a question in the question. I just was looking through the questions. Karina asked, can you show an example of what you call calligraphy?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
As soon as he gets back, I'll ask that one.
Okay. He
Thank
uses a lot of calligraphy, and it would be good to hear what he's doing with that and why he's doing it.
Mhm.
Right, I'm back. I heard you the whole time. I heard the
The whole time?
Yep.
Oh, no. So yeah, we had a question about, can you show again an example of calligraphy and kind of explain what that means?
Yeah. So Roy's got some good calligraphy. I can even just point to it right here. So we're talking about, when I say calligraphy, I mean fine line work. So if you have a liner brush or a rigger brush, right here is some great examples of. I'm not sharing right now, am I?
Nope.
Ah, well, that would probably be pretty weird. It was just me staring off to the side.
There you
talking
go.
about something. Okay, so if you look at the line work here to the left of the waterfall, these beautiful, graceful gestural lines like this little hook right here, that's great. So it's fine line work done with a rigger and generally in a gestural way. So when you think about calligraphy, its beauty is the elegance of the brushwork. So we're looking for something that kind of has that feature to it. So looking up here, we've got some more nice calligraphy up here. So gestural line work. This is really nicely done right there. And when you have a watercolor painting, trying to utilize the properties of the medium, if you can have bold calligraphy over the, like with rough texture over the top of a beautiful fluid wash, separate layers, it dries in between, but that contrast of rough texture line work over a big field of open fluid paint is it's a really beautiful thing. So calligraphy is an element. If you haven't thought about it much, it's really useful to add to your painting. So good job on this, Roy. I hope that made sense down there talking about the bush and kind of breaking up that shape a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. All right, moving on. We got Mark's painting here. So here's the reference photo. Love this scene. I love the composition. You know, breaking the rules by putting this big vertical shape kind of right in the middle, but it's sort of balanced in a fun way. I've got no issue with it whatsoever. I think it's great. I love the subject. I used to paint a lot of sports. Scenes, hockey, soccer, baseball when I was in college. Took a workshop from Doug Liu. He came up to St. Cloud area and he's got that book on capturing motion and watercolor, and I absolutely love it. In fact, now that I'm coaching hockey, it's something that I want to kind of get back into doing, is painting sports scenes again. So nice job on the painting. Really good job. Let's look at that reference photo again. Great sense of light and shade in here. That's another thing I like. This shadow right here just being cast sharply across the snow, and then that beautiful soft texture on the powder. This is a great scene to paint. So let's look at how you did in the painting. I thought you handled it really well. You got a good grasp of the light and shade again on the snow here. You got beautiful soft texture on that powder spray. I thought the rendering of the figure was beautiful, capturing these little slices of light here. And then the gradation of the leg coming down, getting lighter and lighter and melting into the shadow and the snow back here. So I thought that was beautifully handled, fresh application of paint. Really no issue with it in general. I feel like as the critiquer, I'm supposed to find something to suggest to you to change, but I really like the way you painted it. I would have been tempted to deepen the color and the value of the background, just to provide a little bit more contrast. But that's maybe just my own personal taste. Yeah, I just liked it. Mark, I don't know if you're here, but if you have anything specifically you want feedback on, I'd be happy to touch on it.
Well, thank you very much. My issue was the sky. It was so blotchy and I wanted it a smooth gradient, and I still have trouble with that. And so I overworked it trying to smooth it out, and it just went crazy. And then I have these grease spots or fingerprints in there, and
Are you were you working on some kind of a Yupo or something, or is this a hot press paper, or is it cold press?
it's cold press, but probably not the highest quality or the highest
Okay.
quality paint.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So it's like a Strathmore or something like that. Well, so given that, I think it's pretty impressive that you did get these soft textures. And on that paper, if it's a wood pulp based paper, things dry really fast. It is hard to get that soft texture, really any texture intentionally. So that's probably the main issue there, is get yourself some good arches, cold pressed cotton paper, and that'll make that a lot easier. But yeah, in that case, probably staying lighter was smarter, because going darker is probably going to enhance those flaws, as we might call them. But yeah, I got no problem with the background. I was just thinking a little darker color would be good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Nice job. Beautiful piece. Love it. I'm inspired. You inspired me, Mark. Now I want to paint more sports. All right, we got Cynthia up next. So beautiful painting here. I love this. Nice rhythm to it too, with the architectural lines leading in. You got this tree framing it, graceful root bringing you back, and then the neck of the geese here kind of swooping back up. Echoed again in the shadows on the ground. It's all motion leading you into the scene. I thought that was great. I love the way this background is painted. Fresh application of paint. It's abstract, but doesn't matter. It's mid-value and light sky in the background. It works. You don't need to paint it any more than that. That's just great. Feel like I'm at an up north resort or something. This is really cool. I like the subtle light and shadow on the building. I thought that was a nice touch. The figures are well done, freshly painted. You tightened up a little bit on them, but it's not they're not over rendered or overworked, and it's still nice and fresh. So I like them a lot. Yeah, beautiful scene. Nice job. All right, we got Julie's lily pads here, and she's got a reference photo, so I'll show that real quick. Beautiful deep water here with these green lily pads, and then the accent color of the flower is a nice placement in the composition. So great scene, good subject selection. Looking over at the photo, I think we maintained a lot of the stuff that we were after. So nice deep dark background, got good warm tones in the water, the weeds next to the subject matter, and then you got these beautiful lime green lily pads. So I think you nailed the colors there. I think you could go a little bit more intense or pure on like the permanent rose color that you've got in here. I think that would work. And then the only other suggestion I had is if I switch back over to the reference photo, you can see that these lily pads go right up and off of the picture. And one of the tendencies we have as painters is to stop things right before they hit the edge of the paper. And that has a tendency of it can give it like an amateur look. And I don't know why that is, but is there somebody?
About that time, isn't it? Oh, I gotta get paint out.
I'm not able to mute. So I would just say, just remind people to mute themselves.
Okay, sounds good. So just taking objects right off the picture plane gives a more kind of a more natural, authentic look to the scene. So when you stop them and you don't take them off the paper, it tends to have a vignetted look to it. And it just draws attention to it. So I would be taking these lily pads right up to the edge of the paper, and I think that would give it a little bit more of an authentic look. But nice splattering in here, nice exploiting of the medium, good handling of the values and the color intensities overall. Just great variety even in this background. Just making sure that you got that there. That's great. This water down here is beautiful. So tons of great things happening here. I just had a good suggestion there. I think the painting would improve a lot by doing that. So thanks, Julie. Nice job. All right, we've got Moose on the Loose here by Sandra McKay. Love the title. Great job. Nice rendering. I think looking at this, I'm happy to see that you're using the full value range from white paper to black paint. Good rendering and modeling on the light and shade on the moose. This is kind of a neat area up here, just the abstractness of the antler. I think that was really cool the way you painted it. I like the snow over the top, and I like how you brought this dark value into the background trees. That was going to be one of my suggestions is if you look down at this tree here, we've got light values and mid values, not very many darks. And so I think just from a balance perspective, I would probably bring some dark greens into this, kind of like you have up here. Down here, I think that would balance it out more. And then another thing was just looking at the way things exit the picture. So just be careful of certain things. So let me do that again. Up in this corner, you got the pine tree kind of leaving right at the corner of the picture. I would just bring it in this way a little bit. I think that'll look a little better. And same thing down here, just be aware, you've got these two converging lines and they're both pointing right off the picture plane. And we want to try and keep that viewer inside. So this would be a good area where I'd find some reason to break up this strong motion of the line. So that could mean darkening the background here and creating a shape that goes against this to kind of stop the viewer and then loop them back in up over here. There'd be a variety of strategies on how to do that, but just you can play with it and kind of figure out what works, but just be careful of those lines really leading right off the picture. And you did a good job of doing that here with this moose, which maybe would have exited the scene right here, and you broke it up with this pine tree, and that brings the viewer down this way. And so I think the viewer just needs a way to kind of come back up into the scene instead of leaving off the bottom. So that's my 2 cents there. Nice job on the painting. It looks great. All right, got Nanette Asagi, and this is a beautiful, fresh, kind of like a plein air sketch. I like the looseness of the background. I thought the colors were very localized, but they're done well. So I like the darker base to the trees going up to a mid value. I like the accuracy of the architecture. I like that you painted the signs on there. I think that stuff is cool. I like that a lot. And then the water is a real strong point for me. This is great example of calligraphy down here, I would say. So if you look at these beautiful, graceful lines down here, they just add to the scene. Beautiful line work up here. It feels a little bit like a urban sketch kind of a aesthetic with these dark outlines, but I don't know, I've got no problem with that. It's a great capture, great scene, nice color on the rocks, beautiful rhythm in that water. Overall, just a pleasant little sketchy watercolor. I like it a lot. All right, we've got another similar concept with the outlining on this one, and I'll show the reference photo here. Looks good. I like it. I like the path leading in. Got the red rocks up here. Nice focal point for the scene. Nice clean sky. Got some snow on the mountains. That's a good subject matter. So switching over here to the painting, I like how you broke it down into shapes, and I think you created a more appealing composition with seeing the road kind of winding through here. I like that a lot. Like these muted gray violet shadows in this area. I think those really bring out the warmth and the sunlight on the rest of the bluff there. Good colors. I like the shapes a lot. I think I don't know how you handle this with, if you do it over everything or if you use that line to kind of emphasize certain areas a little bit more. But overall, I think it's working. I think it's got a cool look, and it's fun to see. I'd be tempted, when I look at the sky, I see beautiful effects of watercolor with that gradation, maybe some granulation happening in there. And I think you could push that to emphasize the lines even more. So like in this area here, as an example, what if you just did a big, this shadow color here? What if you just did a gradation from the shadow over to the sunlight that kind of transcended or went past the lines a little bit? I think that might be a nice like contrast to these other areas that are really tightly rendered according to the lines. So that might be something just to bring out that fluidity of the medium and exploit it, and also kind of play with that wash versus line element. And if you can find a way to get some rough texture in there too with your paint, I think that would be an added touch. Like using your brush to draw, you could draw in these lines like rough texture on the road kind of leading back in. I think that would be a nice feature to add to it too. So, but great capture, nice job. All right, we've got Nancy Bergman. This is Moody Rose, and beautiful blend of kind of dancing on that line between realistic and abstract. I love it. I love the white paper. I think it glows with sunlight. Look at this beautiful deep shadow here. That's a great touch. I'm liking it. I like being able to follow the path of this white through these objects. I always think that's a fun challenge of just trying to connect as much as you can. So that's working really well. I can see some beautiful glazing that took place to knock down areas and mute them to bring more emphasis to the focal point. I think that's really working. I'd be tempted to kind of do that a little bit with the white spaces themselves, since there are so many of them. I'd be tempted to kind of glaze down the peripheral areas and leave the bright white paper on the main focal point. So that'd be something I'd suggest if you can get, some rough texture in there too. I always think that's a nice thing. And although you have beautiful edge work and lines, I think a little bit of calligraphy somewhere, if you could bring that in, would be always a nice feature. So great job, Nancy. All right, we've got beautiful barn scene here, quintessential kind of Minnesota scene. All right, go back to that. I like the rough texture in the sky. I like the motion that you gave to the clouds and how they swoop in towards the subject matter. I think that's nicely done. I like the negative painting around the flowers in the foreground. And I like the way with these pots that you anchored them to the ground with a shadow and revealed to us where the sunlight is coming from. So I might play that up a little bit with the barn here. You could give that a nice hard cast shadow, and that would further emphasize the light. Looking at the white spaces like on the side of the barn here, and even up in this eave here, given that that sunlight's coming from the left, I think you'd want to shadow this a little bit darker, kind of more towards that gray. And same thing on this side, unless it's a reflected surface of some kind, but that'd be something I would consider doing. Same thing on the silo. You could just kind of shadow that right side. It would play up the light and shadow a little bit more and really help out. But I like the light passage through here, kind of leading up to the barn, the movement in the sky. I think nice rough texture down here in this foreground, good calligraphy and gestural brushwork over here. So a lot of good things going for it. So nice job on this painting. All right. So we got Martin here, got a nice beautiful sketch. I think this is the reference for the painting. So it's gonna go forward to this. All right. Nice job on this. It's got just fantastic color and variety. I like that dominant cool. I love these the color in these shadows. I love the accents of these negative spaces. Bringing those forth. That's great. Great work on those negative spaces. I love the calligraphic line over the top. Beautiful accents down here. I think this is kind of your focal point. So I think that's working really well. I'd maybe be tempted to somehow try to accent that a little bit more with some of the brightest color, lightest color on that. And then maybe even deepening the background a little bit just to bring it forward a little bit more. But yeah, nice job. I just love seeing the sketch and then seeing kind of the, am I not reading that right? Yeah, I think that's right. So nice, both beautiful pieces, and I love seeing the color on this one. I think that's great. So nice job, Martin. All right. How are we doing on? We got quite a few left here. Britt, are we good to just keep going, Andy? What do you think
Yeah,
we
I
should
think
do?
we're good. It's about it's 8:09. So I mean, I think we can go till 8:30. So maybe just see how many we can get to.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
All right, so we got Doreen Peters here. This is a great fresh watercolor. I love seeing paintings like this. Just clean application of paint. It's bold. Look at that sky. Super fresh and fluid. I think that's nicely done. I like seeing that the element of gouache mixed in. Why not bring a little bit of warm color in front of that sky? I think that's a great idea. Lovely abstracted horizon back here with light and shadow on it. Let me zoom back out a little bit. I think I would be kind of looking at this and again, just wondering what my focal point might be and how I could enhance that. So seeing a lot of busyness down here, which catches my eye. Wonderful calligraphy, by the way. That's got great energy to it. And also up here too on the top of those grasses, beautiful brushwork. But I'd be tempted to figure out what is it that I'm really trying to highlight. And I used to have such a tough time with this because I loved everything about the scene. I'd want to kind of give it all its due and represent it. And now I'm just trying to isolate things a little bit more and simplify. And so I'd be asking myself, do I want to emphasize that horizon, or do I want to emphasize these weeds or grasses down here? And then just trying to subdue other areas by glazing them down or darkening this background would push it back, graying it down so it's less intense of a color. It would be another thing to consider doing. But you know, I love everything that's going down here. I don't mind the busyness on this particular area. I think again, because the contrast is minimized a little bit, it kind of finds its place down in the corner and works. So that'd be something I would consider. I'm sure that was probably already on your radar, but beautiful fresh watercolor, nice and lively, great energy to it. All right, we got Paula Pettis. So we got a nice still life here with a lot of things happening. Got this radial pattern to the fan in the background. That's nice. I love the delicate shadows on the porcelain and the cloth. I'm looking in here. I'm appreciating the soft texture that you added inside of that. I think that's a nice touch. Beautiful softened shadow back here. It's also a nice touch. So I like appreciate the accuracy that I'm seeing. I love the line work here. There's a great sense of rhythm when you follow these shapes throughout the scene. Nice job using this shadow to point into the scene and minimizing some of these other ones as they get closer to the edge. This is another beautiful shape that just brings you into the fold and you kind of follow things around. So I think that's the art of still life, isn't it? It's like it's a crafted composition. And so I like the way you arranged it, and I think you did a good job painting it to maximize that. Show you a great example of a lost edge right here on the side of this vase. So, vase. Just that cool gray background melted right into the side of the vase, and it's just a passage for the viewer to go from that background to the object itself. So nice job on that. It's great piece. Well done. All right, looking at Claire Ritter's here. This is Centennial Lakes. I know Centennial Lakes. I did an art fair there quite a few years ago, so this does look familiar. But really appreciating the negative painting with this darker magenta color around that lime green. I think this particular area is a really strong area, so I like that a lot. Nice job on the light and shadow on these cement features here in the boardwalk. And good job on the reflection, kind of deepening that shadow on the reflection. I think that was nicely done. Good sense of light and shade on some of the foreground areas here. And I like the way you handled this foreground. This is what I mean by a simple gradation. So you got kind of a cooler, darker blue at the bottom, going up to a lighter, warmer green. It's just a simple thing, but it really makes a big difference in a painting. So nicely done there. Also, you see a similar gradation happening in the foliage up above, from brighter and warmer on the left to cooler, darker, and kind of more subdued on the right. So it just further enhances that sense of light and shade in the scene. Good shadows anchoring everything to the ground. I like the negative painting again around this background grass feature. So I really... This is be a handful to paint if you're looking at this. There's a lot of stuff there to paint. I think you simplified it well. You just really condensed it down to the basic stuff that you needed to render it, and really brought forth the light and shade in the overall painting. And I think for me, most of the time, that's what I'm attracted to, is that light shadow pattern. So good balance of negative painting, exploiting those textures. Nice job. All right, we're looking at Jerry Ritter. This is Astor Cafe. So here's an artist where you look at it immediately and you can see they've got a good grasp on the medium and on drawing skills. So I really, to me, that just jumps out right away. I like the character on the building, these bricks leading the eye down and in. I think that's great. Like the contrast on the white and the dark right here. Good placement on the focal points and the composition overall. Minimizing the contrast on the background area. Nicely done. Everything's anchored to ground with the shadow. Nice calligraphy on this tree. A lot of good things going here. I like the figures. They're figures, right? They're not, we don't need portraits of people. They're just enough to kind of know what's going on. That's a busy cafe scene, street scene. And they're everything they need to be, and they fit in with the aesthetic and the style of the rest of the painting. So nicely done there on that. I like it a lot. Good job. All right. Got Yumiko Saunders, excuse me, and Yumiko, sorry, I'm butchering names. So this is one I wanted to bring into Photoshop too. So I'm going to switch screens just real quick, and I wanted to show you something that's pretty interesting. So I'll go back to Photoshop here, and I want to get this scene into that. So I'll pull it up, bring it in. So I'm a big fan of using gouache. I love using gouache. I'm also a big fan of stressing to tint the color of the gouache when you put it in a painting. So when you use titanium white gouache right out of the tube, or any titanium white of any medium, it's a cool white. So it shows up as cool hued or tinted in a painting. So if you take this scene, this painting, and if we turn up the saturation on it, now pay attention to the whites, the gouache marks on the hawk itself. So I'm going to crank up the saturation here, and you're going to see how cool colored they look tinted compared to the warmer natural whites of the bird itself. So by doing this, I can see pretty much where the gouache was applied, and it matches what my first sense was with that gouache. It comes out cool looking. So tint it with a little bit of a warm color. My go-to colors are going to be Naples yellow or Windsor orange, and you can put quite a bit of that in with it, and just to warm it up, and it looks really nice. So that would be my my suggestion when using gouache for anybody, and also in this painting, I think that would help. So, but speaking to the painting itself, nice rendering on the bird. I think it's very realistic and captures it well. I like the softer textures in the background, and the composition is nice. Good range of values. Certainly doing a good job of recognizing what you see and kind of painting it. So nice, some nice fresh applications of watercolor paint in here too. So great job on the painting. Just wanted to share that little tip with the gouache, and I'll head back over to my other screen and we'll keep going. So great job on that. Okay, got another, I think this is they've got the same last name here. I don't know if it's husband, wife, or family of some sort, but
We're not seeing your screen.
oh, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, you're seeing the painting now of the architecture in the bird bath. Nice painting here. I think I'm attracted to the brushwork. I like these little dabs of color. I think they're entertaining, and I think it's a scene that kind of lends itself to that. So I like the way you did that. Nice drawing on here. Nice negative painting around this structure. Overall, nice job of just doing the negative painting and seeing the values and painting around those whites, making sure to leave them, getting some nice rich colors and shadows in other places too. So that would be something I would consider just thinking about, would be identifying which direction my light is coming from and casting shadows in the opposite direction. So for me, when I look at this, it's not completely clear. Maybe this tree is casting a shadow that way, but it would be something that in any painting, I'm looking for reasons to kind of push that sense of light and shade, and to kind of make sense of everything by knowing which side to put a shadow on. So that'd be something I would consider doing in this, but I love it. I love the freshness of it, the immediacy of it. Just sketch it and paint it. I think it's awesome. So great job. This has just got a beautiful composition, Wayne. So I'm really impressed with this. I can spend a lot of time looking at this. I love the white cathedral in the background, the kind of the directness with which you're painting things. So it's like, this is a tree and I've got the right color and value and I painted in. This is a structure here again, shadow underneath, just like the most minimal amount of information, but it's all spot on and well painted. So I love the shadow here on the light pole. Cars, look at just a lack of detail, and I don't want the detail. I just think it's beautifully painted, simplified. Just again, that condensed amount of information. I think you really nailed it. I think you could soften or lighten the shadow towards the perimeter over here. You could play up that light and shade a little bit more with a kind of a cooler ultramarine Payne's gray mixture, and cast another shadow across the road here to emphasize the light down in this area diagonally. There's some things you could do to kind of play with it, but I'm really impressed with it and I like it. So no need to fix something that isn't broken. I think it's working, and I'd definitely leave it there. All right, this is a gorgeous painting, Heather. Way to go on this. I think we got the reference photo here, and I like the reference photo, and I like what you did with the painting. You really brought the warmth out of it and the light. Excellent rendering on all of this stuff. It's busy, but it's not a problem in the painting. I love the shape of this. I think that was well done. The figures, nice rendering, good colors on them. They're muted, they're more intense, but it's just the right amount of information. I love the attention to detail on the hair here. Negative painting is great. Probably using some masking fluid. Maybe not. Maybe this is all negative painting, but leaving those bright whites up on these pots up here. Another nice touch. Good job taking the lot of black and gray and muted tones in the photo and bringing life to them by giving them a little color. Really pushing that warm, cool contrast, brings out the light. Good job on the color intensity. It's just a great piece. All right, we got some chickens here. Big fan of chickens. I like it. There's a lot of detail on those. Let's see how the painting came out. Good. I like the arrangement of these. I think that's fun the way they step back from one to the next to the next. Nice job on the color temperature, pushing this background one cool. I like some of the modeling on the snow and the ground plane. I think I'm liking the rendering here and that line work on this chicken. I think that's a nice touch. I think this is their focal point right here. So I'd be tempted to get some bright white next to a dark value in here and really push that. Keep getting drawn up to this right here, which isn't a problem, but if you want them looking at that, I'd put a little bit more detail or something for them to see there. But nice job overall. I think you did again, color intensity, nice muted areas, more intense areas, and using that full value range, I think is a good thing. Could benefit from some lost and found edges on the edge of the chicken. They're all kind of rough. This up here is nice. Kind of that rough texture fading into the background. That's a nice lost edge. I just look for more ways to do that. I think it's always a good thing to do. So nice job, Mary. We got Split Rock Lighthouse here. I think I may have seen this scene a time or two before. But you know, it's one of those iconic views that's always charming. So worth painting. I think if you're going to be a watercolor painter in Minnesota, you have to paint the Split Rock Lighthouse at least once. Is that a requirement for the Minnesota Watercolor Society? It should be. Show me your Split Rock painting and then you can join. Okay. Nice job on this. I think you really gave it some color and some life. The background's great. I love seeing the granulation in the water. Nice negative painting around these rocks, bringing you up and in. I think down in this area, I like the way the dark of the water creeps up into the cracks of the rocks. I'd maybe emphasize that a little bit more. There are some darker crevices in these rocks I think you could kind of draw out. But nice calligraphy on these areas. Overall, nice sense of light and shade on the building. Nicely rendered structure. It gets a little bit busy in here. I think you could kind of fade some of those off as a soft texture. But you know, getting nitpicky there. It's subdued in contrast, so it works. Nice job with your cool and warm contrast up here in the focal point area. So nice. I can tell you've painted watercolor. You've got a good handling of the medium. I'm seeing scraping. I'm seeing clean washes. I'm seeing pure areas, negative painting. It's nicely done. I like the softened edge right here. I like anywhere you can do that. You know, you can have crisp defined areas and then softened areas. Again, just lets that viewer kind of work through the painting. Nice job on this negative painting down here. That's really, really sharp. So a lot of good things going on here. It's a nicely rendered painting. I bet you could sell it like that. It's nicely done, gorgeous scene. And I paint iconic things all the time, so I'm not harping on you. I just joking. But good command of the values and light and shade. So nice job on that, Carol.
Thank you.
You bet.
Oh,
All right. I think I went through them all.
Yay, is
wow.
that it?
Good
Woo.
job.
All
Look
right.
at that. 3 minutes early, Andy.
You did
3 minutes early.
wonderful. And I want to thank everyone for the lovely artwork you sent in. It was truly a pleasure to look at it all today. What a great variety we have in our society. It's terrific.
All right.
Yeah, I
Well,
was
thank you so much, Dan.
You're
I
welcome.
think we learned a lot.
Just reading through the comments quick. Helpful suggestions. Thank you. Lost Edge. Did he answer your question? I don't know. Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay. Went through Photoshop. Calligraphy. Helpful and interesting. Good. Recording is available for you afterwards. Britt's recording it. Got some administrative stuff. Good. Dan is awesome. I just wanted to highlight that comment. I don't know if everybody got a chance to see that.
We agree. We agree, Dan. Yeah, your head's gonna get too big.
No, this is fun. I love watercolor painting. I love looking at paintings. You guys are my tribe. You're my people. This is what I love to do. So thanks for inviting me and including me on this, and terrific job on all the paintings. It's really wonderful to see the variety of subject matter and techniques and everything. So, great job, everyone. Thanks for making this happen.
Thank you, Dan.
right,
Thanks
thank
very much
you.
for all your help today.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay.
All right,
Take care.
thank you.
Britt,
Bye,
we're signing
everybody.
off.
Yep,
All right, bye,
signing off.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Merry
Thanks,
Christmas,
you too.
everyone.
Yeah.